Look closely at this tail. It's hanging by a thread. A German fighter sliced this B-17 nearly in half, yet kept flying. This is the incredible true story of the All-American, the plane that refused to die. History is full of stories that defy the laws of physics. But there is one photograph from World War II that still leaves aviation experts scratching their heads to this day. It is a grainy black and white image of a B-17 flying fortress, cruising through the clouds. But something is terrifyingly wrong. The tail section is almost completely severed, hanging by a few twisted shreds of aluminum. This isn't a Hollywood movie prop. This is an All-American, and this is the incredible true story of the plane that refused to die. It was February 1st, 1943. The location was the skies over Tunisia, North Africa. The 97 Bomb Group was on a mission to strike enemy docks in Tunis. Among them was a B-17F nicknamed the All-American. At the controls was Lieutenant Ken Bragg, Jr., a steady-handed pilot who had no idea he was about to face the ultimate test of survival. The crew was young, brave, and trusting in the legendary durability of the flying fortress. But they were about to push that legend to its absolute breaking point. The mission started like any other. The formation climbed to 20,000 feet, the engines humming that deep, rhythmic roar that comforted every American bomber crew. They dropped their payload on the target, turning the enemy supply lines into smoke and rubble. But as they turned back toward their base in Biskra, Algeria, the German fighters appeared. Messerschmitt Bf 109s dropped out of the sun, their cannons blazing. The sky instantly turned into a chaotic swirl of tracers, flak, and roaring engines. 2 German fighters singled out the All-American. They came in for a head-on attack, a deadly game of chicken. The nose gunners on the B-17 fired back, their 50 caliber machine guns screaming. One of the German planes was hit. The enemy pilot must have been killed instantly or lost control, because instead of peeling away, the fighter plane went into an uncontrollable roll. It was hurtling straight toward the American bomber at hundreds of miles per hour. There was no time to react, no time to pray. The collision was deafening. The German fighter slammed into the rear fuselage of the B-17. The impact was so violent it felt like the bomber had hit a brick wall in the middle of the sky. The enemy plane sheared off the left horizontal stabilizer completely and sliced through the fuselage like a giant knife. For a second, the crew thought they were dead. The plane shuddered violently, dipping toward the earth. But miraculously, Ken Bragg wrestled the yoke, and the wings leveled out. They were still flying. Back in the waist gunner position, the crew looked around in horror. The damage was catastrophic. A massive gash, roughly 16 feet long, had cut almost all the way through the tail section. The entire rear of the plane, the rudder, the tail gunner's compartment, was swaying in the wind, held on by nothing more than a few flimsy metal londrons and the floor decking. It looked like the tail was going to snap off at any second. If that happened, the plane would spin uncontrollably into the ground. The tail gunner, Sam Sarpelis, was trapped in the rear. He was staring into the open sky where the fuselage used to be. Slowly, carefully, he crawled back toward the main cabin over the gaping hole, inches away from falling 20,000 feet to his death. The wind was howling through the torn metal, freezing the crew to the bone. The radio operator, looking at the damage, couldn't believe his eyes. He signaled the base, but everyone knew the odds. 8B-17 couldn't fly without a tail. It just wasn't possible. Up in the cockpit, Lieutenant Bragg realized the severity of the situation. The control cables were slack. The plane was responding, but barely. Every gust of wind threatened to tear the tail off completely. The rest of the formation slowed down to stay with the wounded bird. They formed a protective box around the All-American, their gunners scanning the sky for more German fighters. It was a brotherhood of the air. They weren't going to leave their boys behind, not while propellers were still turning. Bragg faced an impossible choice. Should he order the crew to bail out? Parachuting over enemy territory meant capture, prison camps, or worse. But staying in the plane seemed like a suicide mission. The tail was wobbling visibly. The guys in the back used their parachutes not to jump, but to strap the fuselage together, trying to bind the broken metal. It was a desperate attempt to keep their ship in one piece. They decided to stay. They trusted Bragg, and they trusted the All-American. The flight back to the base in Algeria was a 90-minute nightmare. Bragg had to fly perfectly smooth. No sudden turns. No jerky movements. Even a little turbulence could snap the tail. The other planes in the formation radioed back. "You're wagging like a fishtail." The rear section was actually twisting in the wind. The aerodynamic drag was immense. The engines were working overtime, drinking fuel, fighting to keep the heavy bomber in the air. It was a test of nerve that few men ever face. As they crossed the safety of the Allied lines, the tension didn't break. Now they had to land. This was the most dangerous part. As the plane slowed down for landing, the pressure on the tail would change. If Bragg applied the brakes too hard, the tail could snap forward. If he touched down too rough, the shock would finish what the German fighter started. The crew took their crash positions, bracing for an impact they were sure was coming. They were silent, listening to the wind. The base at Biskra came into view. The ground crew looked up and froze. They had seen damaged planes before, bullet holes, missing engines, but never this. It looked like a ghost ship. The ambulance drivers started their engines before the plane even touched the ground. No one on the tarmac believed that thing could land safely. Bragg lined up the runway. He signaled for a straightened approach. No circling. He had one shot at this. One shot to bring his boys home to their families. Bragg eased the throttles back. The big wheels lowered. The flaps came down. The tail swayed ominously, but it held. The tires screeched against the desert runway. He didn't use the tail wheel. He kept the nose up as long as he could, letting the speed bleed off, praying the fuselage wouldn't collapse under its own weight. The All-American rolled to a stop. It didn't break. It didn't fold. It stood there wounded, broken, but defiant. A collective breath was released across the entire airfield. As the crew climbed out, their knees shaking, they finally saw the damage from the outside. It was worse than they thought. The German fighter had left a hole you could drive a jeep through. The structural integrity was practically zero. Engineers later calculated that the tail shouldn't have held. By all mathematical models, that plane should have crashed the moment of impact. But American engineering and American grit had defied the math. They were alive. The ambulance crews rushed over, but there were no serious injuries. Just a crew of young men, pale and trembling, realizing they'd just lived through a miracle. Bragg looked at his plane, patting the aluminum skin. It had taken a beating that would have destroyed any other aircraft in the world, yet it brought them home. The photo taken of the All-American in flight that day became one of the most famous images of the war, symbolizing the toughness of the U.S. Army Air Forces. But the story didn't end on the runway. The engineers marveled at the design of the B-17. Boeing had built a fortress indeed. They counted hundreds of bullet holes in addition to the severed tail. The crew of the All-American became instant celebrities at the base, but they remained humble. They knew it wasn't just skill. It was luck, and it was the iron will of a machine built by workers back home in Seattle who knew that every rivet could mean the difference between life and death. Word spread fast. The picture of the crippled bomber made it into newspapers back in the States. It gave hope to mothers and wives. It told them that their sons were flying in the safest, toughest planes ever built. It wasn't just propaganda, it was proof. If a B-17 could fly cut in half, surely the Allies could win the war. It became a morale booster that money couldn't buy. The All-American lived up to its name, representing the resilience of an entire nation. Sadly, the All-American never flew combat again. The damage was too severe to repair for battle. It was salvaged for parts to keep other birds flying. But its legacy was cemented. It proved that the B-17 was more than just metal and fuel. It had a soul. It protected its crew like a mother protects her children. Lieutenant Bragg and his crew went on to fly more missions, carrying the memory of that day with them forever. Today, looking back at that grainy photo, we are reminded of a different time. A time when 19-year-old kids climbed into freezing aluminum tubes to fight for freedom. It reminds us of the bond between man and machine. The All-American wasn't just a plane. It was a testament to survival. It showed the world that you can be broken, you can be cut in half, you can be battered by the enemy, but you keep flying, you keep moving forward. So the next time you hear the rumble of an old vintage aircraft engine at an air show, think of the All-American. Think of Ken Bragg holding that yoke steady. Think of the tail gunner crawling over the abyss. It is a story of courage that echoes through the generations. A story written in the skies of 1943, proving that sometimes, just sometimes, miracles have wings. This was the All-American, the plane that came home against all odds.